She
popped up earlier and now she disappeared.
What I was going to do is I've changed the slides around, so there is some stuff around about the children as well. So I've just brought those slides forward. I was going to say we'll probably end up in a sort of 45-minute session tonight.
Yeah.
And then when Lauren does next week, there'll be more of Lauren's stuff next week, and then we'll get back into sync.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that okay for everybody?
Yeah, lovely.
Good.
Yeah.
So the webinar is now live streaming, Dave, is it?
It is. We're on YouTube. I've copied the link just in case anyone can't log in, so then we can email them the link if they
finish my. Oh no, I can't have a bit when Caitlin goes on.
Nobody can see us.
But I need
they can't. No,
well, we just walked in, and I think Alison had been yelling while we were in the garden. Of course, we hadn't heard her, so she was stuck. She couldn't move, so she was stuck, completely stuck.
Oh God!
So I was at the end. I sort of got the Voltarol, got it into the lower back, and that seems to have done the trick. And then loads of ibuprofen and cold compresses, cold and hot, all that stuff is supposed to do. But it seems to have worked.
Oh dear! Just got to try and keep
I'm
moving.
on a new computer.
Yeah, is it? How are you getting on with it?
A new computer.
Yeah, isn't it? And so so I'm not using the usual camera that I usually use, but it's a pretty good camera, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's good. Sounds good.
Yeah. Billy, settle down for the webinar. There you are, gorgeous.
Is Caitlin joining us tonight? Do you know, Mike? Was she?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, there
Hi,
she is.
Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
Caitlin, did you know that Lauren can't come in tonight?
No. Ooh,
oh, Lauren is got. I think it's flu. I don't think it's COVID, from what she said. But I think she's got full flu. She can hardly speak, and she's in such. I phoned her earlier. She's such a bad way. So it's me and me. So I've changed the slides round a bit. Okay. So I'm probably just going to throw you some murder passes every now and then. So, but it's all along the same theme as we did last time, as I spoke to earlier in the week. So it's that stuff about. It's a real emphasis on soothing and mother cat and not being too hard on ourselves. So when I've done the mother cat slide, I'll bang over to you. We're going to go 45 minutes instead of an hour, just because half the content isn't sort of there that we normally have. So welcome to tonight's fun and games, as it were. And so I'm going to do tramps. But I might not call it tramps because I usually offend somebody. I'll probably do unwanted guests, call it that maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do some stuff around. Do you remember the havening?
Yes.
And the soothing touch. And so if you can talk about how you use soothing touch, but we'll just play with it. So if you think, Mike, I've got something really ace to add here, just message me on the chat.
Okay.
And then I'll just bang it over to you, but I'll bang it over to you after the kittens anyway.
Okay. This will be fine, right?
It'll be lovely.
Okay, cool.
Just wing it.
Shall we mute and...
Yeah, ready when everybody else is. Cool. Oh.
Dave, are you going to tell them about Lauren?
Shall we tell them, or do we...
I would,
tell them, or okay.
Yeah, because they'll be expecting.
Yeah, okay. Leave it with me. I'll look.
Okay, see you in a bit.
See you in a bit. Bye. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to session 2 of our Playful Parenting series. Slight change of plan tonight. Unfortunately, Lauren is unwell. She won't be joining us tonight. She will be. We will be catching up with her session next week, so she'll bolt on to her thing next week, so we don't miss out on what she's got to say to us. Mike will be delivering the session with Caitlin tonight for you, and we'll be looking around about 45 minutes or so before we finish. So as usual, if you've got any questions, please use the chat function. if you've got any questions you don't want to be made public tonight, then please do email us at info@pinkrooster.org after tonight, and then we'll either get back to you by email or we can cover your question in the next series of sessions. So hope you enjoy tonight, and I'll hand you over to Mike who'll start the session. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Dave. Welcome to everybody. Yeah, it's really bad news, difficult news too, that we got about Lauren. But you know what? We'll have a really good session despite that. Obviously, not quite as wonderful as when we have the wonderful Lauren. But I'm just going to check that. I'm just going to take this all the way up to tonight's slides. There we go. And hopefully you can all see the slides. And so I want to reassure you that we won't be missing out on any of Lauren's stuff. And as I was coming in, and when Dave said, you know, Lauren's unfortunately can't come in, I was waiting to see all of the participants' numbers start to go down, but gratified that they didn't. So thank you for that. But I am still going to cover some of these strategies that we might use with our children. And I'm also going to let you know that we do respond to the stuff that you sent us. So a few people came back this time and said, can you do some stuff to help with sort of the anger and tantrums, and more about that emotional regulation, how, you know, as well as the breathing, as well as this stuff, how do we sort of like calm our super agitated children down during this time when I think everyone is bubbling along at a slightly sort of raised level of state of tension, as we talked about last night. So I am going to be covering, but the stuff I'm going to be covering today, I do very different. So I'm not a play therapist, but I do see and help, hopefully, and I think we do, with lots of people with children. But the stance I tend to take is much more about what we as parents can learn some neurological approaches to instill calm, to deal with anger, to deal with anxiety. And I'm going to be taking us through some of that stuff tonight. So a few people came through and asked, you know, also, you know, our child has special needs. And I'm sort of like hoping that the course will help with that. We're going to do some stuff tonight that will help, particularly, I think, for those people who are looking at non-verbal approaches to try and help our children. Everything I think that we do, most of what Lauren did last time, I would say has relevance for all children, whether our children are struggling with special needs. And I think that it's about engaging in the sessions and then sitting back and maybe watching them again and sort of thinking to yourself, well, which of this stuff here do I think is worth giving a real try? So we call it the early adopter stuff. So we go with the stuff that our brain tells us that'll probably work. But then I would say also give the stuff that you're kind of thinking, well, I'm not sure, give it a try, because there's nothing like the experiential knowledge and learning that we get when we parent in this curious, wonderfully curious sort of fashion. So thank you to all of you that sent stuff through. And when we look at what you've done differently, I think that your home task is you choose what you think might work. So again, it's going to be myself and the wonderful Caitlin, and I imagine she'll be avec baby or tiddler or toddler at some point. And I just thought that was lovely last week. And Caitlin, we've done a lot of work together over the last year or so, and she's attended the courses, and she's so expert in both in her professional life and obviously as a mum. So brings something very special to our course. So we asked you to see how you're doing. And if you remember last week, I was really encouraging you all to be as interactive as you possibly can. So what I'm after now is a bit of a sense, if you wouldn't mind, of what you've tried and how it went for you. So where my stuff was concerned, how many of you have been able to sort of get better at tracking your breathing? And the importance of tracking the breathing is noticing that if we are parenting and we're holding our breath if we're parenting in difficult situations, in stressful times, and we're holding our breath or we're breathing too shallowly, then it's very difficult to stay within that 3, 4, 5 of the states of tension. So I'm really curious about how you've done with using that tracking of where is my state of tension, and never with any adverse judgment, just state of tension, having a look at how you're doing with improving your breathing, and just getting a bit of a sort of sense of, as we move forward on this course, am I getting a bit of a sense of what I would like to be different about the way I parent? And I think had I done this course when my grown-up daughters were little, one thing I probably would have wanted to be different about the way I parented was to try and parent mindfully. So not, if my kids want to show me something, not to try and carry on doing my work at the same time as looking at the picture they've drawn. I think that would be the one thing that this course would have really helped me with. So over to you guys. What I'm going to be so interested in now is, just any comments at all. How are you doing with the states of tension? How are you doing with being able to track your breath? And if you use the chat function or the Q&A, but it'd be really interesting and really helpful for other people. And if you've been doing anything and combining something with some of our work, or you found other ways to track your states of tension, this is your opportunity to let us know. So let's all be tonight as interactive, because the course just goes so much better when you are. So I'm just going to shut up and wait for a few of you to respond, I suppose. This is where we all hold our breath, isn't it? But you lot were pretty chatty last week. So lovely, some stuff beginning to come in. Yeah, so Fiona, that was just Fiona saying hi. But so big hi to you, Fiona. Any thoughts? How have you done? Anyone had a go at the states of tension? Anyone had a real go at beginning to experience how we parent breathing better? These are the two things I suppose we're kind of interested in tonight. Yeah. So, some stuff. So we just had Fiona coming in that I found it was when I'd reached a peak of stress and I needed to stop and think about my breathing. Brilliant. And I think Fiona, I think that's where ideally what we're going to be doing is using those states of tension and tracking our states of tension as we go, so that we don't reach above a 4 or a 5. Really, really important. But I love what you're saying there, that's when I think about my breathing. So that's slightly reactive, I guess, but most people are exactly the same place as you, Fiona, when we start this work. And it's about moving from reactive to mindful. So it's just watching mindfully, being aware of what state of tension am I at. And do you know what? Rather than wait till I get to a 6, let's just start focusing on my breath now, so that we're able to stay within that optimum sort of area. And I didn't think about it before, but I want to be more mindful of. Yeah, I've got it. Oh, thanks, Fiona. Thanks for clarifying that. We've had quite a few people. Says Dona, I think there. It's very small on my computer tonight. I've got a new computer. Been practicing my breathing, and I wish I'd remember doing it more often. It'll come. Just that really gentle kind of reminder. We've done the one hand breathing to calm anger, and useful, Naomi. I feel I've been more insightful of how I'm reacting to a situation, and knowing when I need to swap out and ask hubby to take over. And breathing slowly has really helped. Unfortunately, my daughter seems unable to join me on the breathing. She'll get there, and I think it's really sort of modeling some of these processes. Cheryl's come in to say she's been really conscious of my breathing and used the 7-11. And I've also done hand breathing with my daughters, and we've enjoyed it. And we've got, I think that was Kedrick. I do need to get my eyes looking up. having the time to stop and control my breathing is optimistic. My child is too physical and active, and if an issue is occurring that is raising my levels, it needs to be dealt with now. Then it's on to the next thing. I think I would come back on you on that one and say, I don't really necessarily want you to stop and control your breathing. I would love it if we can just get to tracking our breath. And we don't need to stop. We just need to quietly say to ourselves, and I like this, and breathe. Just that, and breathe. And it's not breathe, it's and breathe. And the and breathe is add the breathing into what you're doing. And if we say quietly to ourselves there, and breathe, it really does help us so much. So let's see if we can do something to help with those levels of those kids being so kind of bubbly. And I think so many people are. Yeah, and so we've had Karina come in. Thanks, Karina. And just talking about how really emotional regulation helps her so much, and using the stop technique that we looked at, and just cooling my wrists and forehead down and mixing that with the breathing. Gosh, guys, you really have worked, haven't you? Amazing to just step back and breathe before reacting. Amy, I love it. Yeah, it really helped. And tonight I've done the deep breathing when my patience has been tested. Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, a 3-year-old who's very, very bubbling around sort of state of tension 6 and 7 herself. Yeah, that sounded really good. I think the and breathe is going to be excellent. So thank you so much, guys. You see what I mean? All that stuff that comes back from you, you know, we're not here to say that I'm an expert parent. I know a lot of the neurology of this stuff and I'm trained in this stuff. You know, you're the parents. You've got so much expertise that we really need to share. And as we're finding with inviting people back that have done the course, we can get somewhere. So I just want to shift into this very bizarre slide here, but I think this is one of the key messages that has real resonance for all of us, really. And so I'm just going to ask you to sit back, and I'm going to go through the mother cat stuff, and then I'm going to hand over to Caitlin to talk about where this mother cat stuff fits and how, since doing the course, I think she would have tried to employ some of the mother cat strategies, particularly this sense of mammalian breathing and mammalian looking after ourselves. So I want you to imagine for a moment that there's a basket of kittens and a mother cat. And one of the kittens is particularly muley, particularly agitated, particularly adventurous, not keen to stay in the basket. Just wonder, does that sound like anybody you know, any of your kids? You know, just the others are all snuggled down and content to be there, but one of them can't be doing it, always up and about. And so one of these kittens toddles off, as kittens do, and gets stuck behind the oven. And after a while, it gets scared. And what it does is it mews and it meows and it cries. Now, first learning point from the mother cat. You watch a mother cat, and the mother cat knows that it can only respond well at mother cat version of state of tension 3 or 4. So you don't see the mother cat leap and run to go and rescue its kitten. She trots. She trots. And because at the moment, it sounds like the kitten's scared, but it probably isn't an emergency because the kitten's scared a lot. So it's that sense of we stay without panic, because when we panic, we don't usually help our kids that much anyway. So the mother cat trots in and she finds the kitten. And lovingly, she picks it up and she takes it back and she pops it back into the basket. And then she does something quite wonderful. If we watch cats, what the mother cat then does is she licks the kitten and she purrs at the kitten at a certain timbre and at a certain phonic level. And very soon, the kitten calms. And the mother cat licks and purrs until the kitten calms. And for years, nobody really understood this. But now what we know, and I only know this because I do a lot of work for the Royal College of Vets, And now what we know is that the mother cat licks because the mother cat has sensors in her tongue. And her tongue and the licking, she licks until she senses that the kitten has shifted from sympathetic nervous system, i.e. state attention 8, 9, 10, 7, upward, whoa. And mother cat will lick the kitten until full calm and full parasympathetic. Oh, essentially the brain says all is safe. So the mother cat has this brilliant ability to do that until mother cat gets that, picks up on the heart rate variability of her kitten through the licking, and all is safe. And she does that for a really important reason. She does that because if the kitten learns that when it makes a mistake, its mum is angry and cross with it, the kitten also learns that actually, if I stay with mum, and if mum meets me with real soothingness, and dad meets me with a lovely, soothing, gentle, patient response, then the next day that kitten gets up out of the basket and goes adventuring again. And that's what we want for our children. We don't want our children to be inhibited by our response. So let me tell you a truthful story. So when my kids were very little, we went to Big John Lewis, Milton Keynes, and the baby was a baby, and I had my daughter Harriet, who was probably sort of 18 months, just sort of toddling about a bit. And my wife says, Mike, you look after her, will you? I'm just going to look at something. So off she went. And of course, I got distracted and took my eyes off the toddler. Harriet got lost and I couldn't find her. And actually somebody had picked her up and taken her to sort of customer services, whatever. But I panicked, no mother cat in me. And I ran like a headless chicken around Don Lewis, screaming her name. And in my mind, the most dreadful things had happened. And so thoughts took over, emotion took over, and fear took over, very unlike the mother cat. Now, when I found Harriet, and in fact, the tannoy system comes over and says, would the daddy of little Harriet please come to, oh, the embarrassment of it. But I get there, and do you think I cuddle Harriet? Do you think I soothed her? Do you think I kind of nuzzled her? Do you think I spoke to her in soothing, calm tones to switch her, because she was crying and scared, switch her from sympathetic to parasympathetic? Of course I didn't. What I did was I got really cross with her and said, oh, you can never, ever do that again. Milton Keynes is the most dangerous city in the whole of the world. And it's full of dreadful people who will kidnap you. And it's a really silly thing you did there. And I'm so, so cross with you. And immediately felt guilt and shame at the way I treated her. Most importantly, for what I'm looking at today, is my daughter then learned this really very unhelpful lesson that when we mess up, we get told off. And then it works too. So when I mess up, I should be cross with myself and angry with myself. And so we almost, by our response, the antithesis, the very vast difference between us and a mother cat, we get it wrong on so many levels. And I think that what I'm suggesting today is so many parents that I see for therapy who come to me for one-to-one work with anxiety, and they have small children, and they talk about, oh, Mike, I'm so rubbish. I'm so crap. I'm so useless. I get this wrong. I shouldn't even be allowed to be a parent. And in essence, what they're doing is they're not being a mother cat to themselves, because parenting is, in my mind, the hardest job in the world, and the job that we get no training for normally, and the job that is built on uncertainty and doubt and loss of control, the very things that make us feel jittery. The one thing we can take away from tonight, if we take one thing, is just treat yourselves like a mother cat. If you mess up your parenting, if you do get cross, if you struggle, if you feel like, today I wasn't very good as a parent at all, forgive yourself, soothe yourself, and be a mother cat yourself now, because your kids are watching this stuff. We want our kids to learn that when dad messes up, dad doesn't get down about himself. Mum doesn't get cross with herself. Mum doesn't beat herself up. Mum is forgiving and accepting that all human beings are flawed and we make mistakes. It's okay to get things wrong. And then our children learn, it's okay to get things wrong. And so when they go to school, they don't get anxious when they can't do something. They accept, if I can't do something, I learn. So this mother cat stance, I believe, is a crucial stance. And it's at the core of the science of compassion focused parenting. So let's swing over to the wonderful Caitlin and just see, well, what she thinks about the mother cat stance and how she soothes her kids and what she does in line with this stuff. So I'm going to shut up and I'll be back in a bit.
Hi everyone. So I find myself in a very relatable situation for Mike saying that obviously the pressure that we put on ourselves as pets, it is the hardest job. There is certainly nothing that can prepare you for parenting. There are several thousand books that you can purchase lovingly in Waterstones or WH Smith online, and there are lots of forums you can join, and everyone has an opinion, as I'm sure you've encountered, but nothing prepares you for parenting. And the social situation that surrounds parenting is very... Oh, sorry, Fiona, my darling. Can you see me now? I'm kind of hoping you can. Although there's not really much to see. I'm just holding the baby again. This is my life, by the way. This just happens in my evenings. I'm so sorry. Odette will probably join us every week. But
we can see you, Caitlin. It's all right.
No, that's cool. Thank you. The pressures that are around us, so everyone feels as though there needs to be, your children always need to be controlled in public, and they need to be well behaved, and they need to not touch things, and there's lots of things. And children at school, so if you've been the parent who's been called in because your child has pushed another one, or they've hit someone with a tambourine, or whatever age it is, whatever difficulties you have encountered as a parent, there is always that feeling that people are judging. There's always that feeling when you do get called, to the school door and things, and relayed information about your child, and they've done something. You are mortified as a parent. You think, oh, why isn't my child perfect all the time? And Jane over there has however many children, and all of hers seem seem lovely. But the situation that is present for ourselves is that's not the case. You don't need to feel as though...
Sorry, Caitlin, just 1 minute. Apparently people can't see you at the moment. So I'm just going to ask Dave. Dave, can you just make sure, because Caitlin's camera is on, but at the moment we can't see her. So can you just get Caitlin on so that we can see her on camera?
Yeah, I'm trying to get her on the screen at the moment, Mike. I've got her in a sort of mini view, but I can't get rid of your screen that's sort of dominating the picture at the moment.
Okay, let me just see. Okay, let me just take that completely off. See if you can do it now. No, I'm not still sharing.
Oh.
There we go. And now I'll just stop share again. And now you should be able to get to Caitlin. Sorry, guys.
How's that, guys? Is that better? And can you hear me better? Sorry, that might be because I'm sitting further away. I was relaxing with Odette.
No, for some reason we can't. So we're just going to have audio with Caitlin tonight, because for some reason, and she's going to talk. So you won't be able to see Caitlin. for the moment until we manage to get that sorted. But you should be able to hear her. So, and now you can see it. I'm here.
Hi.
Back to you, Caitlin. Now it's ready. Thank you, guys, and I'll shut up again.
Sorry, Mike. Hi, guys. I'm still here with the baby, and I'll sit a little bit closer. For those of you who can't hear me, I do apologise. I was sitting further back in my chair then. So all I was saying was basically just to confirm what Mike was saying, that you don't have to have those pressures and those judgments that other people or what you think other people are thinking on yourself. There is no perfect way to parent. There is no perfect way to be a grown-up. And I think those who take a stance where they feel they are the perfect parent or they have the perfect child are living a lie. There are so many moments in parenting and in adulthood in general, which are a massive struggle. They put a lot of pressure on ourselves, on our stress levels, and on our children. And whether it has a domino effect, which means that, Mike is right, the pressures you feel on yourself, your children will pick up. And for me, I had a very difficult personal situation, which I went to go and see Mike about. So how I met Mike was I was in an abusive marriage. And in turn, what I felt as a failure of a parent, and how I should be, I should be better, and my children should be not in this. I couldn't do anything about the situation. I couldn't do anything about what had happened. That obviously police and courts have dealt with everything now, but I couldn't do anything about my guilt. I could not do anything about the situation of me feeling like a failure as a mother. So all parents are now, sort of kept to a high standard where your children should be perfect, but at all times. And that's just not true. Children are allowed to mess up. Children are allowed to make mistakes. And so are parents. There is nothing that stipulates that you need to be always perfect. And that, I think, is the thing that really helped with me was breaking that. And Mike and I, the work that we did, it wasn't for me to feel like I was a perfect parent. It wasn't for me to feel as though, no one can judge me. And, it wasn't about that. It was about making sure that I felt enough as a mum. And I got to a level, and it took me a while, and I had a lot of dark days where I still feel like I'm not an adequate mum. And I have to remind myself, I am enough. I am not perfect, and I may not be, wonderful in every aspect. I have days where I shout. I have days where, my house is a mess and my kids have got paint out, stickers out, they've smeared Weetabix on the windows. Whatever has occurred, I still have to do things like shower. So the disaster that happens whilst I leave my children unattended, I then don't beat myself up for. I am entitled to have a cup of tea and sit down. My children are happy and healthy. They don't need to be perfect. As a mother, it is so important. As a parent, I should say, actually, that's it's not just as a mum, as a parent, dad's included. It's so important for you to feel enough. You've got to feel enough. You've got to embrace the love that you have for yourself, to say, I don't need to be perfect. I am enough. I am enough for these kids. They are with me. They love me. They feel secure. I can sit and read a book with them. I can sit and colour with them. But I can also go for a wee by myself without feeling guilty. I can hang the washing out and, get them involved in all suitable formats that I can. But I certainly don't beat myself up now for the situations that I have. I don't feel that that residing guilt is necessary, because it plays a big part on how my children feel. Mike is right. My eldest daughter, she is 10 this year, and we have worked really hard together to be able to establish that it's okay to make mistakes. I had set a precedent, I suppose, for my daughter to feel as though the things that I was doing, everything had to be, everything's okay, and I've got it under control, and it's all right, and we'll be fine. And actually, it set a very unrealistic example of what I needed. I needed support. I needed Mike. I needed my parents. I needed my mum and dad to step in and help and tell me that it was going to be okay. I needed the police to tell me it was going to be okay. There were a lot of external supports that I needed, which my children didn't see. So they had assumed it was all me. And I was holding the fort, and I wasn't. So I let my children in. I let my children in to see that world. So we would talk a lot about how it's okay that I'm feeling sad, because there are days that you feel sad, and today I need to look after me. So you're going to have some nice time watching a film or on chat to grandma. Lockdown obviously a bit different.
Caitlin?
Yes, my love.
I just think it's really important. There's some really interesting stuff coming in, which I'm going to be really careful about. Would you mind if I just shared some of it?
Yeah, totally, Mike.
Because what you're saying is really resonating with people. It's wonderful. We've had Naomi saying, bit of a difficult week, so tonight was a real win. And quite a few people sort of sharing that they too have been in difficult times. And guilt is the real most difficult one. And our confidence as parents gets knocked, and they're thanking you for sharing what you've shared. Other people are just coming back to say what a brave thing to do is share your story, and it's helpful for parents to hear that. And somebody else just coming back telling of a very sort of tragic situation where their child got quite hurt, and the difficulty is, and she's just said, and we're so lucky, but I finally see it wasn't my fault, so thank you for sharing. So what you've just shared there was so crucially important. So just a major big thank you for sharing that. I'll probably move it on now.
Go for it, Mike.
But can you hear all that coming your way? It's just it's
I'm reading it now, and it's really lovely to know. It took me a while, guys, to know that I wasn't alone. And this is the importance of this course. You are not alone. You are not alone. There are so many people in these situations, and the information that Mike, and Lauren, when she's better, vital, utterly vital. So I will close myself down, and I will chat again soon.
Thanks, Caitlin. Wonderful as always. But it's the mother cat stuff, isn't it? You know what? Essentially, if I put it into my language, good old therapy language, I'd just say that where Caitlin got to was she realized, I've got to start being a mother cat. And we all could do with being dads as well, just for this moment. Let's go all gender fluid on, become mother cats, see where we get to. So another stance, I think, that can be so helpful for us as parents is kind of bubbles up and out of this idea. So I want you to imagine for a moment that you throw a party, and you've been waiting for this party, and you only invite people that you want at this party. Now, you have a neighbour 2 doors down who is quite horrible. We'll call the neighbour Brian. And he's just the most obnoxious, difficult character that you've ever gone. And you entrust somebody, let's say your husband or your wife, depending on your gender, that's listening tonight. You say to them, will you just go out and invite some of the neighbours? Whatever you do, don't invite Brian. And your partner says, yeah. But, they're listening to something, they're a bit absent-minded, and they send an invitation to Brian. And the day of the party comes, and you're really excited. It's a beautiful sunny day. Everyone's out in the garden as they come in. Nobody wants to particularly be in the house because you've got the house looking so pristine and gorgeous and smart and tidy, like we do if we have people around sometimes. Not always, but sometimes we do. And so everybody that comes in this beautiful day just goes out into the garden. And a couple of people stay in the sort of sitting room and in the kitchen area chatting. And the doorbell rings and in walks Brian. And you say, "Oh, Brian, I'm so sorry. I think it's invitation only." And Brian brandishes his invitation and says, "I'm invited. Look, came to my door yesterday." He's got to stay, hasn't he? And as he comes in, he just comes in and he starts walking around the party and he starts being rude to everybody. And he's obnoxious and he eats with his mouth full. And we watch him and we're kind of watching him. And because of human nature being human nature, is we follow him a bit and we kind of, "Oh God, what's he going to do next? Oh my God, what's going to happen next? Oh no, don't speak to her and be rude to her. Please don't do that." And then he goes in and sits down in the kitchen area and just starts making a real mess. And the few people that are in there, he just starts talking at them rather than to them. And you're in the kitchen because you're where Brian is, just making sure that everything's okay. And a really good friend comes in and says, "What are you doing?" And you say, "Well, do you know, I'm just kind of watching Brian, kind of focusing on Brian." And they say, "Well, do you know, before Brian came in, I was watching you. And you weren't really joining in the party much. But what you were doing was you were looking and you realized that, do you know, my life sometimes is a bit of a party. I have friends, I have a home, I have a health, I have wonderful children that have difficulties and stuff, but they're generally wonderful. I can play, I can smile, I can laugh, I can find closeness." And actually, it felt like you were really realizing that your life was something of a party sometimes, a lot of the time. But since Brian came, it feels like you've only been focusing on Brian. And it feels to me like maybe there's a choice here. And maybe what we need to do is notice Brian, notice it, but let's not focus on it. Because if we shift the focus deliberately on purpose and start making a conscious, mindful effort to make sure I notice when things are good, make sure I notice the party that's going on, then I wonder if things will be, your life just going to start to feel better. And you can probably guess where this is going, but essentially it's a key compassion-focused parenting skill, this, and it's noticing and focusing. And if we catch ourselves, and very often as parents we do this, only focusing on our kids when their behavior is bad, only focusing on our children when we're feeling crabby, only focusing on ourselves and our negativities, only focusing on the stuff of life that is problematic and difficult. We do it from a sort of place of trying to make everything safe. But actually, a very simple way to think about this is just to think about the Brians in your life. Apologies if anybody tonight is called Brian. Think about the Brians in your life. And, I have choices. And do I want to focus on the Brians in my life? Or could I shift my attention to the stuff in my life that gives me pleasure, achievement, joy, happiness, curiosity? And sometimes a really simple thing to do is to, when we stop and we take a breath and we're tracking our states of attention, and every now and then just cueing in and saying, right, where's my focus today? And we see this in school, quite often when I'm working with schools and I talk about this, the Brian thing, and I say, how often do we find that the teachers only concentrate on the kids that are behaving badly? They're Brians in the classroom, and they pay no attention to the kids that are really trying hard and doing well. And in a weird way, maybe that rewards with too much attention some of that behavior. And there's a lot to be gained, I think, from thinking about the Brians in our lives. Something I'm going to share with you, and before I invite as I'm seeing on the testaments here, the very wonderful Caitlin back, because that was just so powerful, wasn't it? Yeah. This unwelcome party mindset from Alice is saying that it really works well with her to work with sort of intrusive, difficult thoughts. And thank you so much for that, Alice. I think it's a wonderful way forward. And Naomi's sort of getting this stuff as well. And even more stuff back there, just saying how helpful you've been tonight, Caitlin. But one of the things that we can do, actually, I think I'll do a couple of these slides and then invite Caitlin back, because I think that's going to be, I think she'll be able to really engage and give us the her mum's view of these two. So I remember when my kids were little, and this is the other thing I wish I'd learned earlier on. And I don't know about you guys, but we had a naughty step, and we never sat them on the naughty step for long. I think as a whole, my wife particularly was a wonderful mum, and I had my moments as a dad. But sometimes when, I've got to say it was Harriet, normally my oldest one, was being an absolute monster, and we were feeling at state of tension 5 or 6. And sometimes it would just get to the point where you sat them on the naughty step and stay there. And Christine Neff is the sort of goddess of compassion research. And she's done a lot of work into this sort of stuff. This has never worked with me. It never really worked for me either, because it just makes, I used to just find it made our kids resentful. And sometimes the naughty step, and not dealt with and felt. I love that, Amy. So we try not to deal with our kids, we try to feel with them. That's lovely. And I guess what I'm talking about with this slide here is what Christina Neff was saying in this, how do we build compassionate, wise, kind, lovely children, is actually, let's not model a very, a process for emotional regulation that only works for us. So instead, what she recommended was, instead of having a time out or giving your kids a time out or sticking them on the naughty step, what she recommends we might try is actually building a special place, a safe place. A lot of research, that concept of the safe place, but a real live safe place, like a den, with some cushions in there and some books and some lovely stuff, and maybe covering it over with lots of sort of drapes and soft kind of furnishings. And so it's like a little kind of cave that's just about big enough for a grown-up and one child. And if our children are behaving badly, instead of sending them to the naughty step for time out, we offer them some time in with mum or dad. Do you want to have a time in with me? Let's go to our special little cuddly place and let's just snuggle in there for 5 minutes and see whether we can work out what's going on here. And in terms of this approach here, the research and the evidence from this stuff here is that it helps them so much. And what it does is it moves us away from, and it's so Mother Cathy, isn't it? If we think about that, and it just seems to help. And if we can kind of move from a time out to a time in, and to find our safe place. Andrea's saying here, they've got a thinking cloud, but we certainly wouldn't call it a naughty step. And I would never label. And you know what? No, we don't need to label our children at all, do we? But actually, it really, really works. And in a lot of the Swedish schools, they have these emotional regulation stations, they call them. An emotional regulation station. When the kids are, they move them to the emotional regulation station. And quite often it is a sort of den affair where the kids can go in. So I just thought, I am not a play therapist, but I just thought this stuff really fits with, and Karina coming in there saying a lovely idea, adults can benefit from safe places too. Absolutely, but the safe place isn't just for your child. And it's really powerful sometimes when kid goes, looking, where are you, mum? I'm just in our safe place. Why? Because I just need to feel okay too, So just a few ideas, because I was very aware that we didn't have the wonderful Lauren. But I'm just going to finish here with touch. And there's a huge and growing evidence for the power of alpha waves and vagal nerve, and just calming and soothing the vagal nerve. So the vagal nerve comes from the brainstem to all the organs in our bodies and in our children's bodies. And when we get stressed and angry, and if our children have ADHD, or we're struggling with emotional regulation, or our children are bubbling along at a state of tension 6, way more than we used to, sometimes it's worth just thinking about, when they were tiny and they were babies and they were really fractious and they were scared, or they were teething, or they'd heard a loud bang somewhere and the baby gets a shock and it yells and yells. Sometimes the only thing that will calm that baby is a form of massage, isn't it? Where we just hold them, as Caitlin was with her baby earlier, just stroking and soothing and soothing. Now, if you remember doing that with your kids, perhaps you also notice that after a while of that stroking and soothing and soothing, and more stroking and more hugging, and more of the mother cat purring, that sort of really lovely, you're going to be okay. Oh my goodness me, daddy loves you, mommy loves you. Oh my word, how sad. Just that lovely tone of voice. And actually, there's a new therapy approach called amygdalic depotentation, or havening. And the havening research has shown that when we just sit, or we teach our children to use this motion, can you see what I'm doing there? It's just crossing your hands over and just stroking. And if our children are really, really agitated and scared sometimes, we can teach them, and we can sit with them, and we can sit on our knees. And when we're talking to them, we just go back. Because again, some of the really good neurology studies say that for some reason, the amount of touch we apply to our children is, if you watch it on a graph, when they're tiny, when they're infants, we touch them and we hold them and we soothe them through really good, wonderful, loving, hugely appropriate touch, where we're just we do loads of it when they're babies. And the older they get, the less we soothe, the less we use this stuff. And actually, as they get older, the less they do it too. And it's such a tragedy, because this stuff is soothing. So the idea of this stuff is, if our children are super agitated, they struggle with concentration, soothe that brain of theirs. Because when you're doing this, what you're producing is alpha waves. And what alpha waves do is alpha waves stimulate the vagus nerve and actually calm and soothe. So we call it amygdalic depotentation. Well, we don't really say it, because actually what it does is it just depotentates our fear center, depotentates our children's agitated fear center. So one of the things I'm suggesting maybe we do is, when we are in our safe place and we're just sitting, maybe we learn just to see, and find a stroking, soothing motion, and teach our children to be able to do this. And the results can be quite astounding. And that's pretty much it from me today. Before I hand over, today, I suppose what we've covered is an awful lot, but keep that breathing going. Let's stay focused on, where am I? That just tracking our states of tension. Let's get brilliant at focusing on the stuff of our kids that makes us feel happy. And just notice that some of the behaviors that we don't love so much. Let's get better at noticing and focusing. But above all, for me today, it's that kindness to self, and it's modeling that process of the mother cat. That's going to make such a difference to so many families. And isn't that what this is all about? So hopefully we'll get all of Caitlin on. So I'm going to stop sharing first and shut myself up and hand over to Caitlin. And then when Caitlin's done, perhaps she'll hand over back to me, and then
Hi. So, excellent. I was just reading through the chat whilst you were finishing up, Mike.
Sorry, Caitlin, you might need to move forward again. It's still a bit quiet.
Wedging. Is that better? Right. I was just having a look through the chat. as you were closing up then. And I'm loving some of the things that you guys have come up with. So, you know, having sensory dens at home, definitely something for adults. There's nothing more important than making sure that you have a safe place as well. Mine, despite the fact it is usually full of my 2-year-old, is my bedroom. So I, you know, if I'm feeling and I need to have a safe place, it's definitely my bedroom. I have a favorite blanket. I have a favorite pillow. I'm 30. I am not ashamed. I love it. I will go and snuggle in as and when is necessary, because my mental health, my children are dependent on my mental health being managed. You know, and you're right, we are only human, and the ways that we can do it are, you know, being able to make sure that we are looking after ourselves as well as looking after our children. And squashmallows, wonderful to see that pop up. But squashmallows, I highly recommend. They are so soft, they are gorgeous and squishy. Weighted blankets is another one that's popped up. You know, it's wonderful to hear these sorts of things, and it's also lovely to see a comment from Alice to say that my toddler won't sit still. Yeah, my 2-year-old is the same, and there is very little that I can apply technique wise for her that I can apply for my older ones. So for those of you who have got older children who are, you know, sort of slightly less, you know, they don't always want to be touched, it's very uncool to have, you know, a cuddle with your mum and things like that. What I have been started doing, certainly over lockdown, to sort of engage with my daughters when they feel as though the hustle and bustle, you know, another comment, sorry, it's further up, it's being able to juggle. Diane, it was a juggling act for multiple children and send children, definitely. And there is never a time where I have, you know, that sort of perfect peaceful moment to put things into practice, and if I do, it's very rare. But what I find is being able to take that time, even if you've got a toddler, even if you've got a send child, you know, or anything else, that being able to take that time is still vital. So we have been writing a journal. We have been doing, you know, sort of the positives in a day, and it's for us, or for me, it's still important to be able to have that level of communication, even if it's not always in the peace and quiet. So whereas my eldest, you know, my eldest 2 can scuttle off, they can write something in the journal for me in that moment. You know, we'll still have a cuddle, we'll still have all that closeness and things like that. But if we are in the middle of carnage, or, you know, my 2-year-old's poonamied or whatever it is, you can't always offer that time. But I can check in with the journal at a quieter moment and be able to respond. So the communication is there. I do feel that being able to, you know, have the havening for yourself and your children. I don't know about you guys. I don't do very well with grown-ups, but I do very well with children. I actually work with children, and I spend a lot of time when they want to cuddle. You just give them a cuddle, and it's very natural and it's very nice for the pair of you. It releases lovely hormones. You know, Mike touching about all the chemicals in your brain. It does. Being able to sit there and just stroke and smooth is lovely. It's so simple. There doesn't have to be any form of communication. Some children don't wish to communicate verbally all of the time. For those who have, you know, sort of more difficulties, being able to sit and have a cuddle is good for them. There are others who don't. My 2-year-old does not like to be touched when she is in any form of high emotional state. She does not enjoy being touched. So I leave her to it, and I allow her that time to regulate the feelings that she has, and then I allow her to approach me. So it doesn't work for all children. You know, everyone is aware that what works for one doesn't work for another. I'm sure that popped up in the chat as well. But being able to soothe and touch is very therapeutic normally. Massage oils is another one. So lavender pops up quite a lot at home. I've got them in roller pens. I've got them in a spray bottle. And it can be used, sort of at bedtime, after bath, or at any given moment, really. I think it's one of those things you can put on a pillow, you can have in a nice blanket, and it's naturally very soothing. If you can massage, even if it's things like hands. So at the moment, I've been quite sneaky. And where they're doing all the hand washing and all the hand sanitizer everywhere you go, there's, little hands, cold weather, everything's getting a bit rough. So at the moment, my touching and my havening with my girls has been putting on hand lotion, and we do it together, and we make patterns in the cream on the back of our hands, and we have a little talk about the way that we're feeling and how our day was, and if there's any difficulties that we've had, and we work it through as calmly as we can. That doesn't necessarily mean that the situation is always calm. They're all, with 4 of them, they're charging around the place, but it's being able to have that connection, and any moment, even if you think it's a brief one, it doesn't need to be lengthy. A brief moment with any or all of your children is vital for them, and it's so important. It makes them feel loved. Who doesn't love to feel loved? So for me, I haven for myself. So important. You have to apply your own oxygen mask before you can apply one to others. So I make sure that I am soothing for myself, for my mental health, for my stability as a mum. And then I allow my daughters to find what works for them.
Caitlin?
Yes, Mike, sorry, mate.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to be a ruiner and the bad guest at the party. I just think we've got just about enough time just to cover a few more things that have come in.
Wow.
But I wanted to thank you enormously for tonight, because I think it was really brave of you to share what you shared, but so valuable. And I think what the big thing I would say that I would want to take from Caitlin tonight is that the stuff we're doing works, but you've got to do it, and she's just a great exponent of that. We don't know till we try. And I love what you said, because other people are agreeing with you that some of our kids don't like this touch stuff, and some of them it might just be the purring, as our mother cats. It's the way we speak to them, it's sound, it's smell that might get them there. But Caitlin, more people have been coming up with stuff, and I missed a little bit, but there is people are talking about using weighted blankets in the sensory den, and I know that's something that you've spoken about before. And so weighted blankets can be hugely useful as well. And somebody else coming in here, Diane, just talking about, sometimes, it's the juggling act. And I do understand that this is what we're sort of combating. But the time of the timing is working. And I guess I really want to point out that you're all coming up with so many different ideas and tips. But I love this one, which you've got to make it fun as well, from Laura. So a lot of people saying tonight they found very useful. Once again, I'm really sorry that we weren't able to provide you with Lauren tonight. But what I think I'll do next time, next week, is you'll get less of me and more of Lauren and Caitlin, because I think we can just sort of redress that balance a little bit. Because I think playful parenting, the stuff from that comes from a play therapist stance is just so brilliant and useful. So major big thanks to Caitlin tonight for just being an absolute star. Thank you for Pink Rooster for putting it on as usual. And, really thank you guys for allowing us to be a little bit spontaneous, because I didn't have a lot of time to sort of shift everything down tonight, but we really tried to do it as best as we can. I would say, if you like the idea of the havening, if you were to go on to YouTube, there's a couple of really good self-havening videos on there for adults and their own anxieties, and they're all really nice. I think there's even a film of me taking you through the havening process somewhere on YouTube as well. That wasn't great, was it? But there is. So I'm going to hand over to Dave, and thank you all for kind of allowing us to be a bit more sort of spontaneous and off the cuff tonight. And I've got to tell you that Caitlin didn't know until about 3 minutes before we came on that there wasn't a Lauren. And I said, Caitlin, you know, you weren't expecting this, but I'm just going to keep handing back to you. So what a pro. And with that, I'll pass back to Dave.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Mike. And another really powerful session, I think, again tonight. And a massive thanks to Mike, and a massive thanks to Caitlin as well, because she didn't realise that Lauren wasn't coming on tonight. And absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's whole session tonight. Really, really powerful, and hopefully everybody else is looking at the comments and the chat. You know, we've gone over a little bit tonight, and I think that's absolutely every minute has been worthwhile. And looking at the chat and listening to all your comments there, it's I think it's really, really useful, and I think it's one of the most interactive sessions we've had for a long time. And thank you everybody for putting your comments in. It's really good. And I always forget this, and a massive thank you to Andrea for doing the chat. So thank you very much for that. I will mention that we're running a set of 4 sound relaxation sessions starting tomorrow evening over webinar, which any of you are more than welcome to hook into. You may find it beneficial after tonight's session and going into next week's session. You may find it useful to hook into it with your children as well. It's being run by our sound therapist, Inga. She's an expert in her field, and I think you would find it very, very useful. You can hook into the webinar by visiting register at Pink Rooster, and you'll get an auto response with some links, and one of the links will say sound relaxation. Click on that and you can register on Zoom for tomorrow's session, and it will allow you to hook into the remaining 3 sessions as well. So I think Mike's coming to it as well, because he's seen Inga in working, and it's very, 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 very powerful, very very relaxing. So if you've never experienced sound relaxation before, give it a go tomorrow, and we'd love to see you there.
Can I just add a little bit there?
Yeah, please do.
With the sound relaxation, just in kind of in addition to what Mike was saying tonight about the vagus nerves and the parasympathetic nervous system, sound relaxation does work really well with bringing down, and making you feel calm and working with those aspects of the body. So so it's a nice kind of continuum from what Mike's been talking about this evening.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andrea. And just to wrap up, I will be sending the link out to tonight's video. I'll edit it, get it looking a bit, sorry about some of the blips and dropouts, but we'll get the YouTube video up there either later on tonight or tomorrow morning. And we'll send you a link to the Unwelcome Guest video, which is on YouTube as well, that Mike mentioned. Quite a good one to watch as well. So hopefully we might see some of you tomorrow at the sound relaxation. If not, we look forward to catching up with you next week. And as usual, if you've got any questions that we haven't answered tonight, or any concerns or anything you want us to cover over the coming sessions, then please do email us at info@pinkrooster.org, and we can pass it on to Mike and Lauren and deal with those next week and then some of the forthcoming sessions. So once again, thanks to everybody for tonight, and we look forward to seeing you either tomorrow or next week. Bye for now. Bye.